Hello, my name is Ellie, and today I am going to be doing a live reaction to this brand new video from Vice. Do women really have it harder? Male feminists versus anti-feminists. I like doing reaction content, and I think this is a very important subject to talk about in today's society. I have my brother on call with me,
Hey, what's up?
speaking about this as well. So we're going to watch this together and speak on our opinions. So
I haven't seen it.
yeah, this is completely blind. I have not seen this at all. This just came out actually yesterday. So, all right. Shall we begin?
Let's go.
Oh, wait. Hold on.
What?
Stream cannot hear it.
The only thing that I can
There we
think
go.
that justifies being a feminist today is you must just want to get laid. There's no reason to believe in all of these crazy things that seek to strip you of your masculinity, perpetuate these terrible ideas that men are evil and all of these things. That has to be the reason.
Oh boy. I can tell this is gonna be spicy.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. Women have it easier than they think they do.
Pause it. Oh.
You're gonna
I
try to
say-
guess who?
Since I'm the man, I'm the man here, right? So I gotta put my thought in, right? So
Oh yeah? Who says that men deserve thoughts?
I know. I can just shut up and get back in the kitchen.
Yeah, you don't deserve thoughts. Only women
alright.
can speak about feminist issues.
I do think women have it easier than they think they do. Yeah, I said it. All right, you can go ahead.
With feminism, it's kind of brainwashed women to think that they are victims in 99% of cases, and all the disenfranchisement that they would claim in like colleges and careers. A lot of these careers are way easier to get into for women than they are for men because they're looking to hire women because of feminism.
Yeah, like in divorce and stuff, they get more property, the kids' rights, all that.
Yeah.
But more so, I think that from the jump, actually have it easier. Like,
Yeah.
men need to be a provider. They're taught to be tough. Oh, why are you crying? Don't be a girl. But when a girl is crying or a girl is upset or anything that happens, usually they're a princess and they're given the world.
Well, yeah, because with
Unless a girl is against the narrative. If a girl is against the mainstream narrative, they don't give a crap if you are crying about it or not.
That's true.
Just saying.
That's very true. It's very true. But there's something to be said about this too, in the sense of like, two people can have the same problem, but a girl is more likely to be given sympathy, whereas a man is more likely to be given, being told just to man up, toughen up. And I mean, this goes way back, like the whole, women and children first paradigm is where that starts. Like that we are taught as men from childhood that we are supposed to be sacrificial in nature. We do put our bodies at risk. We do put our lives at risk for the sake of women and children. And it's not that that's a bad idea in and of itself at its core, I don't think, but I do think that this causes women to, they get so used to it. Like they get so, this is the world they grew up in, right? So of course men are supposed to do these things. So I don't think it's necessarily, maybe it's more nuanced to say that women don't have it necessarily easier, but I think that women forget about how much they don't have to do that men, take up for, you know what I mean?
I think that men and women have equal weight of struggles. I think that men have more in the long run and like in like quantity, and that women's issues, like with their personal issues or stuff like that, are have more weight to them. Like there are fewer, but they're weighted more. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, you're talking about like issues of having children, pregnancy, stuff like that. You're talking like the struggle that comes along with that. You're talking about that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that
Yeah, sure.
I think that both sexes have struggle, and I think it is pretty even if you think about it, but I think men just have more on the spectrum. Like they have a higher quality of like responsibilities and whatnot, but women, their problems have more weight to them as like individual things, but there's just so much more individual things that men have to worry about. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think so. But then generally, but then also when it comes down to, thinking about just the social strata and men's expectation in the social strata compared to women's. Like, I mean, I'll always go back to this selective service, and this is in America, of course, but selective service. Women don't have to sign up for the selective service.
Yeah.
And I don't want women to sign up for selective service, but that immediately means that men, at any point that the government deems necessary, we have to just give up our lives. And that's something that women are never asked to do. So, like, we are already expected to potentially pay the price, the ultimate price, just for the sake of, because the government says so. And I think that women don't have to do that. And I think that alone shows that, like, I never hear these women, these like female activists, these feminists, I never hear them arguing for, oh, let women join the selective service. I always hear, give women more pay, give women better jobs, blah, blah, blah. But I never hear, make prison sentences the same for women.
Well, let's see if they have these arguments too.
Yeah, let's do it. Sorry.
Women, they're born with their value. They innately have value. They can create life, and they're extremely valuable from birth. For men, it's not really the same way. You have to make something of yourself to be respected.
Exactly. Like a pretty woman can go far just using her face. A man can't do that. A man can't go to a rich businessman or like a businesswoman and be like, I'm good looking, let me come to your yacht.
Right.
A woman can.
Right. Let's bring the
Sugar
disagreeers
mommies
forward.
exist.
That's not true. Tinder is a perfect example of that. He's wrong about that.
Yeah?
Yeah, Tinder's a perfect example. Look at OkCupid and Tinder. They've shown their data. Like what is it? 90% of the women are going for the top 5% of the men on Tinder or something like that. Like, I mean, it just shows delusion, but it also almost conclusively proves that being attractive, being good looking as a man can get you more from the opposite sex. It can get you more in society than not being physically attractive.
Oh yeah, true.
I think
pretty
that
privilege
whoever said that was
exists.
wrong.
Pretty privilege exists across the board, men and women. If you're a beautiful man, you'll get more attention from women.
Yep. Well, you'll also probably get better jobs too. Like it's like, so here's a perfect example. An anecdote. Not Ronald Reagan. The Nixon versus Kennedy debates for the presidency. Yep. The Kennedy versus Nixon. Kennedy versus Nixon debate was the first one that was ever televised. And when they took the polls afterward, everyone who only listened to the radio thought that Nixon won the debate, but everyone who watched it on television thought Kennedy won the debate. And Kennedy was widely considered to be a more attractive, more handsome-looking guy than Richard Nixon. And so if you even look at like the historical relevance of that from like the way that they've interpreted the polls, it's almost that one event showed how physical appearance on a man can have a much bigger impact than people typically estimate on the way that people perceive them.
Yep.
I have a quick question. Just a second ago, you were saying that a pretty woman could go onto a rich man's yacht and that would be kind of her ticket on, right? Okay, so did that help women vote at all, being pretty?
But what does that have to do with
I'm just asking, because I mean, when we're talking about women's lives being better than they think they are, would you rather be pretty and be able to get on a yacht or have your liberties?
What are we living in, like 1950s or 2022?
Yeah.
They already have the right to vote
for a long time.
I think something you specifically said shows to me why women don't have it easier. I think it was you who said, women already have their value. Their value is already obvious because they can have children. I don't want to put you into a box, but there are large amounts of men. Women are people that have children and then they raise the child and they be quiet.
And I think
that is a problem.
I think what was really evident to me when both of y'all came up and talked was how indoctrinated into the patriarchy you are, right? You both come up and say, as men, we have to prove something. And those expectations that you put on yourself is a direct result of patriarchy and the systems that feminism is trying to dismantle.
As are the values that women have that when they were born that you're talking about. Women did not create those.
Right.
Those are God ordained. Men and women are both equal under God and in value as human beings. In Genesis, you have a creation of both men and women that are made in God's
We're
image.
not about
we
to
are
quote the
both
Bible on like some feminist
Hold on,
topic.
but so,
I mean, we can.
We're operating in a country where there's a separation of church and state. You cannot use religion as a
And the Bible
motivation
also
to make
doesn't tell
legislation.
There's a
If
lot
I
going
hear
on.
one more
so much
person
wrong
use
with this.
religion as a reason to not give rights to people, I'm probably gonna fucking explode. People using their own personal ideologies as an excuse to implement legislation over other people's lives are simply just not okay with the fact that they can't control everything around them.
Back to the prompt, I mean, I don't think that women have it easier than they think they do. And I think to just make blanket statements like women in society think they have it easy or men in society have it harder or whatever you want to say, I just think it's kind of naive. Sure, maybe some women think they have it easier, but that might not be because they're a woman. It might just be because of their own set of life challenges and vice versa.
Yeah, and I agree. And one of the reasons that I am so passionately anti-feminist is because I believe that feminism pits men against women. Men and women may be equal today, but they are not the same. But also, too, women are under a pressing assault today in this country. They're losing their ability to compete in sports, beauty pageants, also just basic things like that to people that identify as women. And no one is talking about it. Feminists aren't talking about it. So now you have conservatives having to fight for women's equality in
You're making
spaces.
some pretty blanket statements saying feminists don't care about it. And you say, you think that all women just are against men.
To answer your question, yeah, you're talking about women. Women are not all feminists. Yeah. There are plenty of feminists who are very anti-woman. You know, you saw it during in the political era where you have people who will attack Kayleigh McEnany and Kellyanne Conway because they aren't pro-women. They're not.
Yes?
I mean, the problem is that there's so many things that all of them have said that are just like fallacious. There's no way I can get through all of it. Like, what happened here is these arguments devolved into, like, extrapolations that weren't even, like, the argument because someone attached a bunch of, like, of additional garbage onto someone's initial argument. And then they came back with the God thing, right? So, like
yeah.
It's like the whole argument. This is just stupid.
I think this guy's making a good point, though. Like how so many people are attacking women right now because women are trying to stick up for women. I think he's making a good point with that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point too, but if you listen to what the core of these arguments are, like the feminists are basically saying, if you disagree with me, you fall into these categories of these ad hominems, and the anti-feminists are saying, well, because God said women are like this, they're like this. Like, and this
I don't know. Let's just continue. Yeah.
For the girls.
So you.
Actually, we have like just a little bit left. I haven't heard Kevin yet.
Yeah. When you talked about the pressures of being a man and having to provide and having to prove your value as a man, I think those are real challenges that men face. That's why, like, women have it harder too, because they are also being impacted by how aggressive men feel like they need to be able to secure the role that they have to play in society. But the reality of today is that because of the systems that we're in, the patriarchy is negatively impacting not only women, but also men.
There's no wrong reason to get an abortion.
You want to stop here for the next topic?
I think that the patriarchy hurts men and women, yes. But I mean, I don't think that any average man or woman are responsible for that. And I think that most average men and women are blind to it. You know, they want to blame the patriarchy on dumb things rather than like the actual issues that are patriarchal, like OnlyFans.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that even speaks to an even greater point. Like, women are trying to say they want equality with men, and they're trying to breach into a society. I'm talking to you about this outside of this environment. They're trying to breach into a society and a culture that was created by men. And they're expecting men who are at the top of the system that they created to change the ways that they do things in order to give space for women in those places. But the thing is, our entire culture, the world economy, even if we have like little sects of communists or communism or little places where things aren't fully capitalist, most of the economy, most of the global economy is a capitalist. We have a capitalist world. So like we are asking the world to change its entire structure to fit this space for women in because they say they don't fit into it, but they also at the same time want to say that they can compete with the men. So unless there's some kind of like meta thing going on, like some sort of like meta attack where they're trying to be competitive by emotionally undermining the power structure or something, what is actually being said, if you break it down logically, is women are saying that the patriarchy, this patriarchy, quote unquote, this system they've created is not something that I can actively compete with. Therefore, I need it to be changed so that I can better compete with it. And so,
I don't know.
How are you going to convince people at the top to stop? I mean, like you take OnlyFans.
You're not, yeah, for sure.
Right. So you talk about OnlyFans, for an example, right? And all these women are using it as this idea of like, I'm an empowered woman now because I'm using OnlyFans. I'm in control of my body. But what's actually happening is that they aren't in more control, and they're just being pimped out by a system that's full of men. So like even when
by men for men, that gives them free access to all of those pictures and videos that you make. In fact, they make a profit off of you. They don't even have that stuff for free. They have that stuff and they get a percentage of your profit. So
yep.
Look at court sentences longer for men for the same crime. Well, I imagine that's partly why lots of men are coming out as trans so they can be put in women's prisons. How long, for other horrible reasons.
Oh, by the way, Ellie, click on your chat and where it says, you can see where it says top chat, choose live chat so you can see everything. There's some stuff that I guess is getting filtered out that people are saying.
Oh,
so
I
you
see.
Can see more.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. That is strange.
Algorithm.
The algorithm is not letting me see you guys. Sorry. Hi, everybody. All right. We'll continue on. Make sure to like this video.
I'll just center the conversation around the very fact that, we're a group of 8 men. The optics of 8 men in a room talking about when women do and don't deserve to get an abortion it's a bad look. So for me, from a personal standpoint, I have a girlfriend. There might be some reasons on a personal level where her and I having that conversation together, I might say, oh, I think we should do this, I think we should do that. On a legislative level, I don't feel confident enough to legislate when someone is and isn't allowed to get health care. Because that's what abortion is, it's health care.
Yeah. One of the paramount ideologies of, I guess, being a quote-unquote male feminist is just the ability to mind your own business. Just to be able to say
sit down
that
and shut up.
this is the wrong reason to have an abortion, you're already headed down the wrong path.
So being an anti-feminist, I look at this and I say, well, I am more religious as well.
As am I.
So I want to say I'm more like pro-life, right? But if a woman decides that they want to not give birth, it doesn't matter the reason. Maybe she's not wealthy enough. Maybe the father left her. There's so many reasons. And then I also look at just gun violence and how we're birthing kids and we raise them and send it to school knowing that it can get killed. I don't know. I would feel like
it's not a safe. It's not the best world to be raising a child in.
Exactly.
I think a patriarchal element, even in your answer, not to combat or what have you, the idea of trying to cycle through the reasons why and going, yeah, I guess those make sense, is still, in my opinion, patriarchal.
Even though I was on the feminist side on that topic, it feels like I was put in a position where I was framed as wrong. It felt like you aren't allowed to have this opinion on this topic because you're not a woman. And I think that's kind of bullshit, to be honest.
Off the top of my head, I know that was mentioned earlier that abortion is healthcare, and I first want to push back on that.
I think that men definitely have the right to have an opinion on abortion. Oh my God, I got a super chat.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you so much. Guys, I am officially with YouTube, the YouTube membership program. So you can send super thanks and be a member on my channel. It's so cool. I didn't expect that at all. So thank you so much for the support.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. Your first super chat.
Thank you so much for supporting my content.
That is so cool. Thank you, everybody.
Abortion is.
Oh wait, do you wanna say something, Zach, before I continue?
Yeah. So I saw I mean, obviously as a guy, an abortion. It's not my business to question why a woman has an abortion. I'm not gonna say why are you getting an abortion today? That's not my that's not my business. But I do think, and I don't know if I said this I've said this before, that I think that there's a difference between someone getting an abortion because they need an abortion, and it's because they mistakenly got pregnant, or they accidentally or you know, like whatever, like something where there's clearly a situation where they did not want to have a child and they are having a child. But I think there's a difference between that and the state sponsoring someone having 20 abortions over the course of a couple of years, or I mean that's probably an exaggeration, but you know what I mean, like somebody having their 15th abortion.
Yeah, didn't someone in the chat last time say that their cousin had like 14 abortions or something? That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And now, if you want to pay hand over fist and you get 14 abortions and you want to pay for all of them, that's fine. But when we talk about legislation, talk about legislating healthcare in the same sense, if you want to talk, if you're in the United States and you know the healthcare system is not socialist, there's no universal healthcare, then the government shouldn't be subsidizing people's abortions. If you're going to put yourself in a position to where you're going to have 14 abortions, that means that there's something about your lifestyle that's making the taxpayer account for, and that's wrong.
Right.
That's wrong. That's flat out wrong. And so
that was me. She did a 14. Jeez, that's like sad and crazy.
Yeah, I would never go to that person and say, "Why are you having your 14th abortion?" But I absolutely would. I'm
not going to guilt them about it, of course, but that's sad and crazy.
I would say you only get so many, free rides, whatever you want to call them. You can't just use taxpayer money to, get abortions over and over and over and over and over.
I mean, I think it's obviously a very complicated subject. As a woman myself, I've gone back and forth on this idea so many times, right? When I was younger, I think all women hit that age eventually. Even all the narcissistic, egotistical e-girls nowadays, I think one day they'll all feel like, wait, am I meant to have a child? I think it's biological, but biology's gross or whatever. I think that it's so complicated because it takes two people to make a child, right? So in theory, why wouldn't that other person, why wouldn't the man have a right to an opinion? I believe in free speech. I think that everyone has a right to free speech. So I think everyone has a right to an opinion on abortion. I think, but I mean, the fact of the matter is, it is ultimately the woman's choice. I mean, I think that's the fact because it is her body, bodily autonomy, right? We believe in bodily autonomy, unless that's not the narrative. Anyway.
It's not healthcare. Healthcare preserves life, it protects it. It doesn't take it away, it doesn't eliminate it.
What about the woman's life?
But when you exterminate a child, that is doing harm.
Oh, but it's not always a child, right? So it's a discussion when it becomes a child or not. That's not a gray area. That's not a line.
It is actually scientifically proven. It is a separate strain of DNA at conception. If you ask any doctor...
But if you took that clump of cells out, would it survive?
It's not a clump of cells, that's why you call it a termination. Scientifically, it is a life at birth, and scientifically, it is at conception. At conception,
it is a life, but it is not a human.
So look, though, the thing is, so when you say it's about protecting life,
it's a life, but it's not
abortions are protecting lives of thousands of women who maybe are...
What they're talking about, all right, this is a little bit, I guess, getting in the Monka territory, but what they're talking about is that distinctive point to where the sperm goes from a sperm into what could be considered to be a living being, right? A lot of these feminists that are pro-abortion will literally call the fetus a parasite.
I think if you're able to have a baby, you should have one. I think if you can, you should. If you can't, then don't. I mean, that's your choice or whatever, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah, this is the whole point of debate. When is it okay to have an abortion? At what point is it a human, and there is definitely some point of transition where the sperm has turned into enough of something to be a living entity. This is my personal opinion. I think that the heartbeat, I think that once you can detect the heartbeat, I think that's enough of a proof that it's gone from being effectively a little fish to being some sort of entity with like life signs, like a pulse. That means that there's an electrical signal transferring through the brain that's regulating the heartbeat. So at that point, there is conclusive proof that life has started.
Yeah.
I don't know where every politician stands on this. So if this is a left or a right thing, I don't even know. I have no idea. Like, I don't know if the right says heartbeat, if the left says heartbeat. I don't know. But that just seems logical to me. That when
I mean, some people want to argue that's not a heartbeat, but what is a heartbeat? That's not a heartbeat.
If you can see the organ of the heart and you can see it pulsing, that's a heartbeat.
Question: do you think a man should be financially responsible for the abortion of a woman if they're not ready to be a dad? I think if both the man and the woman have a compromise and say, like, you know, it sucks that we have to have an abortion, but if both parties agree to have one, then I mean, it depends on it depends on who can afford it, I guess.
I think that I think that
it's equal.
I think that if there, ideally it's equal, but I think that if there's a situation where I'm just going to create a hypothetical where a man says, I really want this child, and says, look, would you have the baby? If you don't want the baby, I'll take it, you know, and she says, no, I'm having this abortion no matter what you say, I think that she should pay for it.
The question is, should a man have to pay if the mom wants it but the dad doesn't?
I think that, oh man. So if the dad wants it but the mom doesn't?
No, the mom wants it but the dad doesn't. So then the father should pay for it. I imagine whoever is the one.
I think I'm confused here. Okay, let me go back again.
He said, should a man have to pay if the mom wants to keep it but the dad doesn't? So no. I mean, I imagine at that point, like, why doesn't the woman just keep it and then dump his ass?
well, that's no. I think we're getting this backwards. If the man wants to have the baby, or does the man want the abortion?
Oh, child support is what I'm talking about. I see. So you're asking if the woman has the child but the man doesn't want it and she has it, should he pay child support? That depends on that. I'm gonna put that up to that depends. Because so technically our father owes child support.
Yeah, here's the thing. If that goes to now here's some real talk for you. If that goes to court, the man's never winning. Like, so if that goes to court, the man is always going to end up paying more than he would have if they came up with some kind of mutual agreement. Because the courts in these situations are extremely biased against men, and that is a fact. There is no feminism about that. When you take this to courts, the court system. You haven't seen the red pill yet, but that talks about this in great detail. The courts are extremely biased against men in these cases. So if a man can negotiate it with a woman in a way that doesn't go to court, or they sign some kind of agreement with each other saying, like, this is how we're going to hold each other accountable for it, that's probably the best ways to do this. Because otherwise, if it does go to court, you don't want the kid, and you have the child, the man is going to get the worst end of the deal. And I've you know, but at the same time, you have to think at the core of all this, what about the kid itself? Like,
right? Yeah, it is about the kid, Douglas, and yeah, this is my brother.
This gets so caught up in all the semantics that, like, people think, oh, do I want this? Do I want this?
Yeah, that's why I say it depends, right?
Yeah, what's the kid gonna think if they find out later that oh, well, we couldn't even decide if we wanted to have you? And well, why isn't Dad around? Well, Dad didn't want to pay for you to exist.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You know, like, I don't know.
The kid should have the kid should have financial support no matter what. But there have been situations that I've heard of, that I've seen personally, that where a mother is an unbelievable evil tyrant, and they squeeze money and child support out of a father who'd be a much better parent.
I could say that. Are you talking about the same person I am?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can vouch for this 100%.
And that's because the court system is weighted against men. He would have been a lot better of a parent than the mother was, but not only did she take the daughter and completely destroy her medically and mentally, but also squeezed out child support for 18 years of this father who it completely broke him not to be able to have custody of her.
Yeah, and that's, you know, the courts aren't fair. That's the problem with this. The courts aren't fair in these situations, so it's terrifying as a man to even be in this situation.
Yeah. All right, let's continue.
are not able to
At
have...
the expense of another life.
But you're already prioritizing that other life over the woman who's carrying that life.
Because of patriarchy, too.
Because of
That's
patriarchy.
why you're doing it.
Because of
Because we've
patriarchy,
already
you're
devalued
basically
women.
saying that
So what if we're
these
aborting a
cells
female
are more
baby?
important than the woman.
I think it's absolutely shameful how flippantly our society has begun to treat the topic of abortion. You are literally exterminating an unborn child.
To
That
protect
is
the
wrong.
life of
That is
another
wrong.
woman.
Then don't have sex without protection.
Really, you don't
and
have
get
sex without
contraception.
protection. How about you don't have sex without
Well, I don't
protection?
have a baby. I don't have a baby. Stop absolving women and men of responsibility and treating grown-ass people like they are children.
Again, we're not emphasizing any of those things.
Right.
We're going straight to women and making it their problem.
Well, it's a man's problem as well, because if a man gets a woman pregnant, that is his child.
You don't get to make that argument, bro. Bruh, you don't get to make that argument.
Bruh.
Women want these problems. They want the rights, right? They want to be treated in society like they're equals and they get to have a fair share and they're treated the same. Then it is their problem. And you can't just say, well, you can't just pass this problem off to the woman, because yes, you can. Because that's equality. That's equality. That is what equality is. You can't sit there and say, like, nah, no way.
Child as well. So one of the things that's really important, what abortion does, is it puts all of reproductive rights in the hands of women when it takes both parties. She cannot have a child without a man. Abortion normalizes women making bad choices. We've kind of given a free pass for people to be a lot more carefree about who they sleep with and not really think twice about the ramifications that may come of it.
But again, we're also,
Murder and
once again,
innocent
we're zooming in on a high level on the end result. We're not talking about the systemic issues that cause women to have abortions. Hold on. We're not talking about the lack of resources that make people feel like they cannot sustain a pregnancy or sustain a life.
Right.
And those are things that are caused by the way men have set up society. So instead, hold on. So instead of talking about the actual issues from the top down and going the whole way, we go to the most oppressed person involved and make it their fault.
Mansplaining is overly criticized.
Oh wait, someone who said it that was like, Eli Ehrlich being at a feminist panel is the perfect example of mansplaining.
Mansplaining. Yeah. This is just absurd, because like I cannot understand how hypocritical this is. Like how do you rationalize this ridiculous cognitive dissonance in your head? You're saying that the most marginalized, oppressed people, you make it their fault. That put this decision all on them, but you want women to bear the same standards of society that men do. Like, men get blamed for most of this stuff in the courts. The courts take the favor of the woman. The courts take the favor of the woman most of the time. And so then the fault is put on the man, and the responsibility is put on the man to account for all these, whatever the court says. But we can't, but women want equality, they want rights, but you can't put them in the same plane and say, hey, after a certain point, this is your responsibility. We can't do that. Now, you tell me that doesn't come from a place of privilege. Apply that to anything else in the world. Like, anything. Like, I don't know. I don't have to pay the bills. Well, I don't want to pay the bills, right? Like, I don't want to pay the bills. Why not? Why don't I want to pay the bills? Because it's not fair the way the system is set up to pay the bills. Okay, well, what can we do to make this more fair? I'll pay half the bills. Okay, well, you pay half the bills. And then they say, like, then what's the argument? You say, like, now because I paid the bills and I put in half my share into this, now I'm more oppressed and it's my fault when things go wrong? Like, I don't, how do you even rationalize this? It doesn't make any sense.
I frequently come across videos online where like a man will respond back to a broad generalization about women, and they'll be like, oh, you're just mansplaining it, as if men aren't allowed to have a voice in the conversation. And I think that the term itself, it's just not really defined.
And mansplaining is just not real.
Yeah.
Like, it literally is a man explaining something, and these people get angry about it. Like, that's the reality of the times in which we live. And it hurts the ability of men to have conversations with women, because you think, oh wow, if I explain this issue to her, then I'm gonna be accused of mansplaining, or I'm gonna be accused of being sexist because I don't think she understands it. That's toxic, and it hurts women, it hurts men, and it's just not a way for us to have a functioning society.
And at its core, it's completely hypocritical, because the feminist plight is that women need to have a voice and they're being told they can't have a voice. And then they turn around and do the exact same thing and say, you're mansplaining me. You shouldn't have a voice about this topic because you're a man.
And and we're targeted because of our identity, and no one cares about it because we're supposedly in positions of power, so we don't get to be victims. We don't get to say, oh, you should feel bad for us, because we're men, so we don't get to have the luxury of having the benefit of the doubt of society or the media or any of those things, and it's a shame. It's a shame.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to speak about mansplaining from a different perspective, because you guys are talking about controversial topics. I'm going to talk about it from just like a day-to-day perspective. In my relationship with my partner, how I try to be really mindful of mansplaining is when she is sharing her struggle, I think a tendency that can be conditioned in me through just how men dominate and want to have to solve problems and all that, is I want to jump in and just solve it and try to explain what's happening here and try to question her experience and be like, hey, like, well, did you think about this? Did you think about that? Well, I see this. That inherently in itself comes off as mansplaining, because what
I'm gonna come in here and say that there definitely is something to be said about like men have a kind of like a one-track mind to want to like solve things as quickly as possible, and women, at least in my own experience, sometimes we just want to complain. Sorry, women watching this. Sometimes we just want someone to listen to us, right? And not necessarily bombard with solutions immediately. Like, obviously, we would go to our partner because we want solutions. That's why we like men, because we know that men have solutions. And yeah, it can be a little abrasive for a man to just like, you know, here's a solution. What do you want me to do about it? I don't know what to do about it, like immediately, instead of listening first. But I don't think that's on the mean. I think most men do listen to women, and that wanting to solve something so quickly comes from a place of them wanting to solve the problems because they care about them, and it's not because of like they're invalidating them.
Yeah, I think that, taking this from a slightly different perspective, I think men get woman-splained all the time, and we're just expected to accept it.
What?
Like, we're constantly told how we're supposed to do things. We're constantly told.
Well, that's because you do it wrong.
Well, that's woman-splaining, right? So then we also get told that we're the bane of society because we all treat women this way, and if we think this way, we're bigots, and if we talk this way, we're bigots, and we're anti-woman if we think this way or do this thing. We get woman-splained all the time. People tell us how we should do our job better, who we should hire, who we should favor, what things that we should think.
Well, I think that there are certain things that men are better at than women, and that women are better at than men. So by mansplaining or by womansplaining, like, it's because they're trying to put in their expertise of things to try to help the other person do that thing in the most, you know, logistical, productive way. And so I think that's where it comes from both sides. Like, men can kind of more easily kind of separate the emotions from it and be like, okay, here are some solutions. Here's a list of things you can do to try to alleviate whatever the issue is, but they just need to make sure that they listen to the woman first and make sure that she airs out her grievances and all that. And I think men, on the same ticket, like, women can listen to men of what their issues are, but also, like, if they try to do something and a woman says, like, okay, like, this is a better way that's more productive, you can do something this way, men need to put down the ego a little bit and say, like, and listen to the woman and be like, okay, she's explaining something to me to help me.
Okay, well then let's wrap that back around to abortion. How many times do women, not you necessarily, but how many times do women have the argument, a man can't tell me what to think about an abortion?
Well,
and then the women try to tell men, like, oh, well, you should be thinking about it this way. You don't get to have an opinion. Only women should get to have an opinion.
Well, a man can't do an abortion wrong. They can't have one.
That's not the point, though. You see how that's still soft censorship, though? Like, the idea is that men can't talk to women about women's problems or their mansplaining, but women are also able to tell men how things are supposed to be done, and they're just supposed to accept it and not argue. Like, it's a double standard. I think that it's a case-by-case thing. If you're the type of person, not man or woman, if you're the kind of person that wants to argue with someone and tell them how things should be done, that you got to be able to take it too.
Yeah.
You got to be able to take both sides of it. And
yeah,
I think
definitely.
that mansplaining is just a cop-out argument for when men rationalize things in ways that are inconvenient and or uncomfortable for women. And so rather than stopping and looking at the rationalization, because men are naturally rational creatures, but when you stop and think about the rationality of it, if it means that your point is wrong, it's easier just to say you don't understand, you're mansplaining, than to actually listen. But the thing is, here's the thing: you ask a guy how to fix a toilet or how to change a tire on a car, you can mansplain all you want, then, right? It's totally fine for a guy to mansplain that to a woman.
Well, yeah,
Or,
I think that women are a little more open to listening to those explanations than men are more open to listening to something that a woman can do better. I think that men fight their ego a lot more when it comes to if we're talking about the equivalency of like changing a tire that a man would more stereotypically know how to do other than a woman.
That's not what you didn't really let me finish my thought. You don't understand what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that if a girl goes up to a dude, like if we're in an environment where somebody needs their tire changed, okay, and the guy knows how to do it and the girl doesn't, the girl's not going to mind at all to be mansplained to at that point because she's getting a benefit out of it.
Right. I completely understand what you're saying, and I'm saying that from my experience in the exact opposite situation where there's a situation where a feminine quality is needed, that men more often will not put down their ego and not get explained to by a woman on how to do something like that.
If we're talking about tasks, sure, okay, I agree with that.
And I think to alleviate that, both parties should kind of just like sit back and let the other person do what they do best, right? And listen, and if a woman doesn't need a solution, then she should be forthcoming and honest about like, listen, I just need to vent right now, and then we can talk about solutions. Or if a man is issuing something, maybe he's like, okay, I don't need all your, ideas of what I should be doing right now. I'm just trying to figure this out.
Did you hear about the whole manspreading phenomenon that was on trains for a while, where like women were coming up and chastising men because they had their knees separated like out diagonally on trains? And women would come up to them and be like, "You're taking up too much space with your knees." That was a thing on trains all over the place for a while. Manspreading, like that's a perfect example of a double standard or hypocrisy where that's completely okay. Men need to be more considerate of women's space, and it's okay for women to point out to men that you're taking up my space, but men can't go to a woman and be like, hey, I don't like the way you're doing this. Here's why this is happening the wrong way. Here's why this is wrong. It's just a double standard, and it's soft censorship. That's all it is. The whole concept of mansplaining is soft censorship. It's saying, I'm shutting you down. I'm not listening to you because, I don't agree with your opinion.
Is the counter to mansplaining is actually getting consent from the other person. How do you want to be supported? Do you want me to support you and listen to you, or do you want me to help solve problems?
It's also, mansplaining is also not just a man having an opinion. Right. That's not the situation. The idea is when a man interjects an opinion that he either is not fully educated on or does not have the appropriate empathy to be able to talk about.
See,
how is that different than a woman doing that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's my issue.
And feel free when a woman does that to say you're womansplaining. I don't think that they'll get
very
There's
a reason that term doesn't exist, because you're not allowed to do that towards women in society.
I promise you, if you did that, it would be just fine.
You just admitted
it would be just fine.
Well, I think the difference is though, when if that were to happen to men, it wouldn't quiet our voices to being completely unheard. My wife is a physics and math teacher. If she has the answer to a question in a staff meeting, she's going to have to be louder than the men in the room, because that is the way society has conditioned people to operate, especially in male-dominated spaces. Yeah. That's what mansplaining is. I have one more question. Is it about the word?
Yeah, that's what I feel.
Is it about
we keep
the
on getting
word?
hung up on like words like
y'all really
mansplaining.
Y'all have a lot of problems with a lot of these languages.
When you say mansplaining, you have to understand that subconsciously we're already creating a divide, when really a woman can mansplain by definition the way you guys are explaining it, and that's just as wrong as if a man does it. So why is it called mansplaining? Why isn't it just disrespectful?
So when your life is not at stake, when you're not being attacked, I think you can focus on language. When you're not at risk of being...
You live in U.S., dude.
Men are attacked every single day.
Women are attacked more.
But I think from a societal standpoint, you guys talk a lot about social conditioning and how
women are attacked more when it comes to rape.
Domestic violence? Look at like gang violence.
Gang violence,
robbery,
definitely men more. Yeah.
Battery.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not arguing that men are not victimized. Men definitely are victimized. Gang rape, all that kind of thing. I'm sorry. Whoa. don't censor me, YouTube. Gang violence is different than rape for women. You know, women get assaulted in the streets, and men get assaulted in the streets for like drugs and like getting in the middle of those kind of underground wars. So I think there is just as much assault on both sides, but they're different kinds of assault for sure.
I mean, murder rates. 90 is like what 94% men. Like that's a flawed argument. Men are attacked more physically. Men are attacked more than women. That is check the FBI statistics. I mean that comes out every year. That is without a doubt, men are attacked more physically than women are.
I mean, I don't know, man. I cannot confidently say, I can't just say, oh, one is attacked more, because there is so much like sexual assault on women every single day, and there is so much violence against men every single day. So I cannot.
He said your life is threatened. He said when your life is being threatened, okay? How often, like I said, just look at the murder rates. That alone disproves his point. He's talking about your life
You're right, Douglas.
being threatened.
Right.
Feel uncomfortable. But don't you think this narrative that you're saying right now is contributing to that? Telling women that they should be scared when they're in an environment full of men. Telling women that, you know, they are oppressed, they are this, they're that. By telling women they're less than men.
Let me respond to that. They're not telling them that. They're validating the fact that that's the reality.
Right.
Women should be encouraged to be financially independent.
I mean, before we start on this one, I'm definitely afraid of being alone in a dark alleyway with, you know, men. I'm afraid of that. And that's because it is so, women get assaulted so often.
Yeah, and I know, and I agree with you on that. I'm just saying that his argument is flawed to try to be like women's lives are at risk more often than men's are on the mean. That's the only thing I'm saying is the flaw in his argument. I know women are at risk for these things. I trust you know. I mean, I know you know that I know. Like, but in the way he framed the argument is wrong, and it's not even based on any reality. Or like, if he had said, you know, women are at constant risk of being sexually assaulted, or like they have to watch their back everywhere because there's always men preying on them, I would say, of course. But he said, when your life is at risk more, then you can use language. But that's not it. Men's lives are always at risk more.
Yeah, men's lives are at risk because, you know, if there's a gang of people in an alleyway, you know, a man is likely to get mugged and beaten up and assaulted as well, you know, just minus the sexual assault. So like I said, I think that both sexes are very vulnerable to violence.
Yep.
Of men.
I love how they have like half the group walk up.
I think this one's a no-brainer, right? I believe that men and women are equal. They're just not the same. And I think with that equality comes equal responsibility to be able to provide for yourself. And when I think about what could provide for oppression, if that were to exist, would be this idea that they were tethered to men to live their lives. I think if you remove that tethering, then obviously women are free to do whatever they please and exit very bad situations. You know, one of the most unfortunate stories that you hear so often is that so many women are forced to live in very dangerous circumstances because they don't know who's going to provide for their child if they leave. They don't know who's going to provide for them if they leave. And so I think financial independence for anyone is always just a good idea.
Yeah, I want to speak about this through a different lens. I think it should be like women should be empowered to be financially independent. Encouraged versus empowered takes a different like sense of support. Speaking to how men feel the need to provide. Sometimes when a woman makes more than a man, men can feel like they're less of a man because the woman is taking more of like the boss and like provision kind of like role in the household. So I think that it's important to be able to equip women with being able to feel like they are empowered. And that is a feminist thing because it is breaking the gender norms of like what is masculine and what is feminine role.
Yeah, I also think it is important though in this conversation to recognize the women that don't want to be financially independent in a marriage. You know, there's a lot of women in our country that enjoy being mothers. And I think being a mother is one
incredibly
of
valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're, you know, stuck in their situation, because they're doing something very valuable by sacrificing that freedom in order to raise our next
It's
generation.
just giving a choice, right?
And their love is their labor,
Exactly,
right?
right,
And their love
exactly.
is their labor in their home.
Okay, I have a few different thoughts. One of them would be the importance of the family. I think women should go out and be financially smart and know how to make money and be able to make money for themselves. But being independent of men leaves this notion of that you can never trust a man or that men are unsafe. And the problem that this brings is in the family. I think
Can
the
I ask you
nuclear.
why?
Hold on, I'm just going to
This
finish
guy's
my
mouth
thought.
is
I'll explain.
agape.
With the nuclear family, you have, and this is for both men and women, they're the most happiest when they are in that kind of dynamic. And to your point about marriages where women makes more than the man, that's one of the biggest indicators of divorce. And I think there is a societal and honestly God-given responsibility for men to provide. So when men are told that women are going to be independent of you, you're stripping away a lot of their purpose and responsibility to be caretakers of women and to provide for women. I would also say that the biggest group of people that are on antidepressants, and it's 1 in 4, are women that are 40, have a career, and have no family and no kids. Which is the real meaning of life is community, family, and relationships.
Can I
He's talking about
respond to
statistical
one
woman.
specific thing you said, which is
What's the source of that? I mean, I kind of, I want to know his source on the whole, like, you know, the women over 40 with no kids and a job, like, they're the ones most on medication, because I would argue that a lot of young people are on medication. That's what I got to say about that. I feel like men do have this, like, inherent want to take care of women, and so I think that's where he's going with this, but I don't really like how he worded it.
I don't think this is even a relevant point. Like, I don't think this even matters. Like, if a woman wants to be financially independent, she should look at her own self-worth, see what she brings to the table, and provide that in a way that makes herself money. Yeah, I mean, like, it's like this whole thing is like, so all right. Let's take a step back here so I can make this a little more clear. If the women are fighting the patriarchy, if the idea is that you're fighting the patriarchy, the monetary system is the closest fiscal representation of the patriarchy that we have. So if you're telling women to be independent of men in their marriages and be independent in terms of their money, they're still relying on the patriarchy to self-sustain. So I don't understand the argument here. Like, we're all trapped under the same monetary system. So even if you're independent of a man in your life, you are still subservient and beholden to the same system that man is. So the question becomes, does a woman want to release some of that burden from herself and be, you know, more subservient to an individual man who handles the money, or does she want to be subservient to the patriarchy that distributes the money? And like, like I don't think it matters. I think that it's a personal thing, and I don't think you should be encouraged either way. I think someone should look at their own core values and decide what you want. If you want a man that'll take care of you, find a man that'll take care of you. It's a beautiful thing. If you want to go out and be your own business person and make your own living and do your own thing, that's a beautiful thing too. Do it. You should encourage people to be the best version of themselves, and that's it.
That makes sense, Bonnie. Yeah, I mean, I mean, that makes sense. When he was saying, like, specifically over 40, like, I didn't know that. I'm not necessarily saying that I think he's wrong. I just want to see the source.
The demographic of women over 40 taking antidepressants, and you're using that as proof that they're the most depressed group. Men just kill themselves. So
Yes,
like
but
all
those are
the men that have killed themselves, if they didn't do that and we're still here, men would predominantly be more depressed than women.
There's no basis.
But also the
men
correlation
statistically
between-
kill themselves more.
But we're talking about two completely separate, different points.
Well, yeah, I think he's just
health-
saying that statistic is a little bit.
So one of my best friends from middle school killed himself, and he was only 27. So
I think that, I mean, I'm going to conflate issues.
he was a straight white male.
If we want to talk about how much the left and how much these progressives want to use the argument of, like, you know, treating, you know, trans people or whatever with bigotry, transphobic things leads them to suicide, is this dude's statistic talking about men killing themselves more frequently not an exact indicator that men need to be catered more to in society than we are when it comes to our mental issues?
I mean, attempted suicide for women, though, is very high. But men's success rate is higher, for sure.
Like, but did you hear what I just said, though? Like, if the argument is that all of this, like, transphobic speech or whatever, it promotes violence.
Yeah, I don't know if he's making that argument, though.
No, I know that, but what he's not. I've said I'm conflating here a little bit, but I'm trying to make a point. My point is that if his argument is that neglect of issues or neglect of things is what leads to suicide in people more frequently, doesn't that mean that if the progressive movement is saying that there needs to be more attention paid to trans issues because it leads to suicide, does that not lead to the argument that men's issues should be looked at more if it's leading to more frequent suicides?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, is that not the same thing? So how
it should be looked at. It should be taken very seriously, the amount of suicides that men commit. Yeah.
So
definitely.
then by that logic, this whole debate is falling apart, because if the argument is that men are killing themselves, if it's agreed upon that men are killing themselves over 3.5 times more than women because of the strains of society and of culture, then that means that men do have it harder. Like that by itself wins the argument. If the world is so bad that men are killing themselves over 3 times as much as women are, then men do have it harder, and there is no debate about that.
Well, I mean, if we go back to men being solution-based, it's a terrible solution, and it's flawed. It's a flawed logic. But, you see where I'm going with that?
I'm saying that it's out of context because the men that
there's other factors.
Yeah, there's other factors.
There's always going to be other factors, but that's a clear indicator that women at some point, whether they started wanting a career, will eventually want to fall into a role of being a mom, having children, because that is what women derive the most happiness from.
You got a lot of studies and stats over here, which is cool. But like when we're talking about financial literacy and financial freedom, there are a lot of women that have the ability that decide to step back. All those types of things. None of that has to be taken away or omitted in order for them to be empowered. People should be able to do in their households what they want to do. Right. And I don't think anybody's trying to take that option away from women. I think y'all think people are, but I don't think that's really happening.
But they are. But they are. We see that in society today. People demonizing women for choosing to stay at home. Female empowerment also means empowering women, again, to make the choice that fits them, their choices, and what they want to do. Right. It is just as powerful, just as influential, just as important as a choice to make to raise your kids at home, if that is what you want to do. And
hold on, back to the suicide thing. I just randomly thought about that. Thank you, Outlaw, by the way. I have personally experienced 2 suicides in my life, and it has been a man and a woman. But the woman was my mother-in-law, and hers was from an overdose. And my friend's was from a very high fall off of a building. So, I mean, it's hard because he was 27, so he was in his 20s, and she was older. She was, I think, like 48 or 50 maybe. So, I've seen both in my personal life, is what I'm saying.
Also be the CEO of Walmart if that's what you choose to do. We can empower women to be girl bosses, whatever you want to say.
Would you empower a male friend if he told you that he was going to quit his job to be a full-time stay-at-home father?
If he wants to. What?
So
cash in, buddy.
That's good. I just want to make sure, because like you're only defending women who get demonized for doing this, and you're not like advocating for men to want to step up and do that too. You're only
because most men don't want to.
Why not? Why don't you want
because
men?
they don't want
because
to.
They just don't want to.
I don't want to.
I just want to make sure I follow your logic.
Are you pro-choices or pro-less choices?
This is a trap. This is a trap.
What do you mean by that?
Are you pro-choices? Are you pro-less choices?
When I asked him why he doesn't encourage men, he said because they don't want to do that. So then why is it a problem if women don't want to be stay-at-home?
I'm not encouraging women to stay at home.
Too.
I'm not encouraging women to stay at home. I'm saying
that
that they have a choice, and I'm not for taking choices away from women. You may be. I don't know.
All right, reset. Period pain is exaggerated.
What? Oh my God, what? Men are like, I don't want to touch this one.
I'm glad no one stepped forward for that.
That was a trap.
I'm gonna change.
Now, if anyone's going to talk about a trap, that was a trap. Right there.
I think that, I also don't think that men can have periods.
Yeah.
My mind.
All right, next prompt. Innocent men suffer because of feminism.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so.
Absolutely, 110,000%.
Especially the fifth wave or whatever.
So I
feminism.
think
New age
today
feminism,
in
definitely.
2022, feminism has changed drastically.
Yep.
And I think it's really turned into demonizing masculinity in men while promoting masculinity in women. And with that, good men are being pushed to the wayside and pushing parts of themselves down and not embracing their own masculinity because society is telling them that it's wrong.
100%. I think anything that is deemed masculine is seen as now toxic. And I see it all over social media. You can't really say anything or do anything, especially even against or even for yourself, without it being some weaponized in some way or shape or form.
Yeah. It's a shame that feminism has become less about actual equality and more about supremacy. It's not about equal rights between men and women. It's about women being superior to men. And women don't even like it anymore, right? I hear conversations with so many girls that are friends of mine. They're like, I hate what feminism has become because it makes me feel as if I'm a victim, and also too that men aren't supposed to be men anymore. It almost absolves us of the responsibilities that we have as males in society to be providers, to be protectors.
Right.
And innocent men suffer because we're made out to be toxic because we're fulfilling our roles as men in this world. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, and I mean, I disagree a little bit with saying that men have to be providers, but I think, demonizing those men is part of the problem.
Yeah, I would disagree a little bit, but I think also too, though, what we probably would agree on is that in a society that makes women feel as if they need to be more like men, all you get is really bad versions of men. And when you have men who are increasingly more feminine, you get men who aren't being men at all anymore. And I think that's a huge societal problem, and we see the ripple effects and the consequences of that every single day.
Yeah, you want to pause it before they go in?
Yeah, also, make sure you put your name in the chat. They're looking for your channel. Oh, thank you, Douglas.
Yeah, I'm not a political analyst, but yeah, I do.
Zach and I definitely want to make our own podcast. We do have a secret channel which we haven't made public yet, but once my channel gets a little bit more traction and we kind of gain a following over our more political opinions, we want to kind of make a channel that's specifically like a podcast for just political hot takes alone. Like I said, my channel is kind of women's issues and video games and politics kind of together, but yeah. We have a secret side project, but please follow my brother, Zach Ansley. His channel is very educational and awesome too. Follow him on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
And thank you very much, Douglas, for the super chat.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to go too much into my personal life here. I'm not, but I will tell you, and I'm sure a lot of men will hear this and resonate with me, that I have been literally favored against in a situation where my partner, effectively went in. It's so crazy to even talk about this. I was asleep, and this person that I was dating went through my phone when I was sleeping and found a text that I sent to someone that was employed under me who was a lesbian, where I told them that we needed to have a meeting after work because of something work-related, and that's all it was. She got so upset and so hell-bent on the idea that I was cheating on her that she called the police. And the police, she came to our house, she started bawling. And the police came to our house and put me up against a wall, asking me why I was abusing this girl. So what's happened is our society has morphed into this whole it doesn't matter what happens. Men are always the bad guy. Men are always toxic. Men are always evil, and you should not believe them. They're always abusive. that what happens in situations like that, a girl can literally breach my privacy, extrapolate on some truth she comes up with in her head that's not even real, and call the police. And they believe her before I even get to tell my story. And I mean, I end up basically conclusively proving to them that I did nothing wrong, and that the text that they looked at was from my phone from a coworker. I was a manager of a place, and it was one of my assistant managers. It was a conclusive proof, and they basically said, well, you know, this is a common trait of abusers to frame the situation like they did nothing wrong. And so they ended up telling me, I didn't even go to work that day. I had to call my district manager and tell him I couldn't come in because of what happened. And I told him I can't come in because the police told me that I could not go back into the house for the rest of the day, and I needed to take a day away and come back. I couldn't come back that day to my own house.
Yeah,
There's
man.
more to this story that I'm not talking about
That's
on the
super
internet,
messed up.
Yeah, and so because of this feminist movement and this
Not
whole
fair.
like believe women no matter what they say, no matter what the conditions, no matter what the circumstances. I almost got arrested when I was asleep. I almost got arrested for sleeping and somebody going through my phone, and that is not an exaggeration. This is the true story, 100%. Like, it's craziness. One of the craziest things that's ever happened.
When I started hearing y'all talk, y'all have a huge misconception of even what feminism is.
Well,
the goal
please
of
explain- yeah,
feminism
explain it
isn't
to
to
me then.
demasculate men. The goal of feminism is to fight for social, political, and economic equality for everyone, regardless of
equality
your
of
race,
opportunity
gender.
or equality of outcome, because it used to be equality of opportunity, and that's when I would say I would be a feminist.
But
But
either
now
way-
it's become equality
But-
of
but
outcome.
you guys-
But either way, what y'all are talking about is feelings.
Right.
Y'all talking about, I don't like how women make me feel in society about crying, how women make me...
Well, the question
Hold
was
on,
about
hold on.
feelings.
Yeah. No, hold on.
It was about, are men affected?
Hold
That's
on.
feelings.
Yeah, but
So yes, that's the
but
conversation.
feminism itself is not about feeling. It's about, like you said, outcome. It's about the wage gap. It's about having access to...
Which doesn't
wage
exist,
gap?
by
What
the
wage
way,
gap?
right? But anyways,
Hold on.
I'll let you talk.
No, hold on. No, you didn't let me talk, though. Hold on. No, you didn't let me talk, though.
It's
Hold
about
on.
feelings, right? You don't want to talk about how men feel. Let's talk about how women feel. Let's talk about feminists.
Again, it's not
have
about
turned-
feelings, period.
how
That's my
feminists have
point.
turned
It's
on
not
other
about
women.
it's not about
have
feelings,
turned on
period.
other women.
Wait, can we have the prompt again?
Yeah, let's get back to the prompt because it didn't have feelings.
Exactly.
Feelings.
Right.
It's about
Innocent men suffer because of
Oh,
What are you
feminism.
talking about?
And so
Yeah.
can I pose this question?
that
then?
is still about
on
feelings,
a
isn't
day
it?
like on a day-by-day basis. Do you think you're negatively affected by feminism?
100%.
Yeah.
120%.
And so
They really believe that?
No.
Can you explain to me how on a day-by-day
Because
basis
it makes
this
them
affects your
feel,
life negatively?
because again, masculinity has this mythical eligibility of power.
Wait.
When someone, feminist, what have you, challenges that, it feels like oppression to them. So
Yeah.
it feels
It's not-
like something is
it's
being
not
done.
challenging.
That's just my perception.
Yeah.
Feel free to disagree,
And
but that's
I'm
what
not,
it looks
and I'm
like
not
to me.
oppressed, so I
That's what I'm saying.
challenge that perception. But also, too, to go back to your point about feminism, that may have been true with first wave feminism, but with third wave feminism, that is no longer
And
the
I would
case
even argue
anymore.
because
No, I
first wave
disagree.
feminism and third
Guys,
wave
bring it back
feminism.
to the prompt. And then also just, I love the ping-ponging, but just make sure we don't have 5 people talking on top of each other.
All right. There's another side to this too. It's the patriarchy. And so that is what you are talking about. It is the pressure to be strong, the pressure to protect.
But in what ways is our society a patriarchy today? I know you said values, so I would want to get clarification on what you define a patriarchy.
So we should define patriarchy as a group, because I personally am still having a hard time defining it today because it is
So we're
so
talking
massive.
about something that
Patriarchy
you
is just
can't
a
even
man-led
define.
society.
So, well, I'll try and define. Do you want me to try?
Yeah,
and
let's
define?
do it
In a
together.
broader spectrum, I'd say patriarchal is the societal structure that we have set up that's kind of, what's the word, sociological values of how we set up a hierarchy in our society.
Dictated.
But
And
a
so it's
patriarchy
not
is
a
defined
little.
by, where men are in charge and hold power.
Yeah, but that,
but
I'm,
wait,
I'm-
hold
I'm
on.
not
Values.
saying
Suffering
that it's,
from
it's a
patriarchy,
literal,
the
it's a
men
literal
suffer
thing where
from-
there's some document that somebody wrote where it said men are in charge, women are second. It is a set of sociological values that you see
So we're
across
changing the
society.
definition of patriarchy,
Well,
which is
from the-
fine. I just want to make sure we're on the
I'm
same
telling you
page.
It is a
that's
group
what my
now.
definition
Yeah.
is. I didn't say there was a set
But that's
definition.
a,
I'm
that's
not
a red
theorist.
herring.
That's
anyway.
how I
So
define
are we
it.
saying we're not in a patriarchal society?
No, I don't believe we are today. So the whole idea that
Wow. Bradley, thank you for the second super chat. Oh my God, thank you. My ex-wife accused me of abuse and then got RO. What does RO mean?
Restraining order.
A restraining order. Holy shit. And then when I was at work, then could not even go home after work. Did all this in one day. Then had a fight for 18 months to see my son while paying child support. Oh my God, what?
Yeah,
Wow.
this is where the red pill is such an important movie.
That is crazy. I am so sorry.
I understand, dude. The feminist stuff is affecting men legally. That's why
Yeah.
the red pill is such an important movie, because see, this is what they're missing, is that like
That's terrible.
They're not talking about the courts and how feminism has caused the courts to far disproportionately go against men in ways that actively hurt them when they don't deserve it.
I mean, we're not
And so,
even halfway through.
I know. You want to use the term innocent. Well, that's talking about guilty versus innocent. Absolutely innocent men suffer because of feminism, even if you just go to the courts.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bradley. I agree that the courts are heavily weighted against men, and it's not fair. I've thought about doing a live reaction to the red pill on my channel, but I'm concerned about it getting taken down because it's technically a movie that you pay for. Is it on YouTube?
No.
Yeah,
you have to pay for it.
So since it's behind a paywall, I probably can't do a reaction to it like I'd like to. But I do want to do another reaction to the second trans women debate, the one with Amala in it. But yeah, thank you for the super chat. We're here for you, man. We're on your side.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that, man. I feel you.
That our country is an oppressive patriarchy, it just really gets under my skin because nobody's able to actually tell me what that is. Well, by definition, the patriarchy would be a society where men have power over women and women don't have a voice. And in today's society, that's just not true. Obviously, some people have power over others, but in our society, that has more to do with economic status than actual sex.
So going back to the prompt, right? The prompt is innocent men feel attacked by feminism.
Suffer
from
yeah,
feminism, right? So if you make a mistake, you should be held accountable to that mistake.
Absolutely.
Now with the forms of internet coming out and communication going everywhere, y'all are talking about feeling attacked for being able to say certain things or not.
Not attacked,
If you
I just
are,
think that psychologically
It
that
does
some
suffer.
innocent men do suffer from
But I
the
would say they
narratives that
also
are pushed.
suffer if you're speaking about laws. I think feminism has changed a lot of laws
Like
that
what?
now all are women beneficiaries. So if you look at divorce courts, if you look at family courts, if you look at abortion, if you look at a whole host of laws, all of them are women primary. Men are heavily affected by those.
So I disagree actually on that. I don't actually agree on the whole loss stuff. But just going back to like the prompt on the suffering thing, I do think that you have to be aware that a man can't just go and say whatever they want,
Right.
where a
Nobody
female
can.
can't.
Should they be
That
able
is
to?
not
Nobody
true.
can.
A female can say a lot more than a man can, especially online, on social media, on the internet.
but a man
There's a
can
lot
also
of
physically do
there's
a
been
lot
a
more
rape
than
threat
women
made,
can do in society
and a woman
too,
said
right?
no one
But
will
that's
judge an eye.
biological,
Cancel
that's
culture
not-
doesn't come in. But if a man said that same thing, they would get
agree.
canceled immediately. I believe men today are really weak. Mostly they're lazy, and I feel like there's no courage. I feel like men today are okay with being losers, and I mean, more men need to stand up for what they truly believe in, and I feel like there's not enough.
Back to the prompt, do innocent men suffer from feminism? I think look at with this entire Johnny Depp, Amber Heard situation that happened this past year. You have all of these feminists rushing to the camp to defend Amber Heard, and then all those things come out during that trial, and people are like, maybe Johnny Depp isn't the horrible guy that we thought he was, right? So
I'm gonna interject here because I want to talk about the Amber Heard case. But yeah, thank you. This will be on if you want to watch the rest of it later. I like doing these reactions. But yeah, I think that the Amber Heard Johnny Depp case did bring abuse of men more to the light because Johnny Depp has such a huge fan base, especially of women. So I think it really did bring up the subject, which was important. I think it showed that women can be vicious, especially in the public eye, for money and clout, and to keep a narrative to make them seem like the victim. So.
So that is an example of feminism radicalizing these people to just be like, I'm going to be anti-male and I'm going to go root against this guy. But to the point of the political.
How is Johnny Depp a victim of the
Guys,
system?
we
He had his day in
30
court.
seconds left on this prompt, so just finish your thought.
But yeah, but also to Brett Kavanaugh. Big example there. You have all these allegations that come up when he's going to be the Supreme Court justice that never came up before.
Right, exactly.
What did that do as far as enable people who have fake accusations to say, I'm going to ride the coattails of the Me Too movement and ruin an innocent man's life?
Really quick though,
That
where's
is
Brett
wrong.
Kavanaugh right now? He's on the Supreme Court.
He's on the Supreme Court.
Well,
Thank
that's
God,
crazy.
because
and then
Truth
Johnny
won the
Depp,
day.
was he
Because Truth
convicted
won
of
the
a
day.
crime?
Because
you
Truth
still
won the
suffer.
day.
But that's the point.
He
So,
won
like,
in
yeah,
spite of
if
feminism.
does not
not
equal
There's a
because of it.
pendulum, and for a really long time, people weren't called out for things, people weren't held accountable. So now, yeah, the pendulum's swinging. Maybe there are going to be some false accusations and stuff going too far. I would rather have 1 million false accusations, like over 1 million people that deserve to be in jail not being in jail. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather people go through false. You'd rather have 1 million people that are guilty on the streets than a
Than have
million
a
people
million-
that are not guilty have to go through a trial.
I would
All
rather
right,
have.
reset.
I mean, I'm not guilty. I don't mind going through a trial because I'm not guilty.
Women are fit
Pause it,
to be
pause it
president.
for a sec. I'm not gonna say much on this, but think of so the Brett Kavanaugh thing. Like I'm not a big fan of the dude just by default. I'm not a fan of him. I want to put that out there. I'm not a fan of Brett Kavanaugh. But what they did to him was wrong. They dragged up things from when he was in high school, and he had to have a journal. He got lucky that he had a journal that he kept of his events that he planned.
I remember this.
Yeah, he had to keep a journal. Otherwise, he would have gotten who knows what happened. He conclusively proved that things that he's accused of were just false. And people did that as a political tactic to cost him his position as a Supreme Court justice. Like I said, I don't like the guy. I'm not defending any court decisions he's made. I'm not defending his political status. I'm not defending anything like that. What I'm saying is that he was a perfect example of how feminist culture, this progressivist culture, does try to ruin people when there's a political agenda behind it. It's a perfect example of it. That's all I'm going to say about it.
I mean, really, this is a no-brainer for me.
Right? Yeah, I think that this is, I expected this to be unanimous, but I think this will probably be the most biggest agreement amongst the group today. I think that anyone who's born in America above the age of 35 that's not a felon, you can be president.
Yeah.
Right, and I think a lot of times in these conversations we focus on the differences between men and women, but just, based off of studies, men and women are very similar creatures. I mean, we're the same species, we think the same on most levels, and to say that a woman can't do the same job as a man, to me, is completely regressive. Now, I consider myself an anti-feminist today, but this is the type of question that I would be a feminist for 50 years ago. To me, it should be a unanimous, thing stepping forward, but I look forward to hearing what they have to say.
Explain
I
yourself,
think
men.
eligibility and optimal option is the difference. I think a woman can be eligible to be president. I think is it the optimal situation? No. I would kind of disagree with you where you say men and women are generally the same. I think we're completely different in the way that we process information, the way that we make choices, the way that we build society. Men are very hierarchical in nature, so it's very merit-oriented. I think women are a little bit more communitarianism or communism. That's what I'm looking for.
Communism.
Communistic.
You mean
where-
community-based?
Community-based, right. Thank you.
please.
Where everybody gets one. So you get one. It's not really based on output, which I think is good in some cases, but I think in a general scheme of building a structure of government, I would say having it more merit-based, very capitalistic, where you go out, you work for your living, you provide for your family. I think that's the way that men typically build society.
So even a woman whose worldview aligns with yours, you don't think that she would be fit to be president, even if every single view she has aligns
Right,
with
like I
yours?
said, she could be fit, but is it the optimal situation?
No, why would she? So is the only reason she's not optimal because she's a woman?
I would say it's not optimal because God called men to be the leaders of society.
So again, you keep going back to
no.
God, and we keep trying to center Christianity as like the know-all, end-all. What about all the religions that had female goddesses and
I would-
matriarchal
We also,
systems?
we also
based on
don't have
right.
to sidestep Christianity as if there were not any female leaders in the Bible either.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna go for my reason why. I think it was in London, and it's before their current prime minister. I'm forgetting her name, but she was their mayor for about 2 months, and she ran away. She pretty much resigned, was done with it. And I do personally think that women are more emotional beings. We are not similar.
And that's actually not factually true. There are big differences between us, and those differences are very vast on the spectrum,
so
but we are a lot more similar in the way we process information.
I was just trying to finish what I was saying. I was pretty much like trying to go to the point of feminism has created, especially Western women, to be more emotional, more radical on like their decision making, and more like just more emotionally charged. And that's where I brought up the London thing, where I feel like that's a good example of that happening, where the pressure got to him. Resigning is coward to me, like being a coward.
Has a male president ever resigned?
I'm not sure, but
if I can interject.
But Richard Nixon, it was because he was getting like put into crime. Like that was a
so it's like double.
Yeah, so
that's not better. That's worse.
Matter.
So if I can interject, so you're kind of using this one anecdotal evidence of like, oh, this one woman got in office. Are you aware of all of history? Because like literally, men led pretty much every nation. I'd say about 99% of nations forever. So like, all the good things that have happened from nations, sure, you can attribute that to the men. Every bad thing is also attributed to men. I'm not using this as an argument to say men are bad and shouldn't be leaders. What I'm saying is you can point to any person that did a bad job, and then you can latch onto their gender and say that's a reason why that gender shouldn't do something. It's not a good example. It doesn't make any sense.
But I do want to go back to you saying a woman as a leader and how some of those things might not be fit to be president.
Right.
I think that when we talk about a lot of the problems men are facing, a woman being president could actually help some of those, especially in facilitating a society where talking about your feelings is more accepted. I do believe in a 100% merit-based society, which is why I believe that anybody, man or woman, gay or straight, black or white, can be president if they have the merit to be so. But I think that to say that just because a woman makes some decisions differently would somehow have a negative impact on society is all just based off of assumption, when it could actually have a very positive one.
The gender pay gap is real.
Yep.
I don't think there's any argument. There's no reason that a woman shouldn't be president. I just think that no one should be president that is associated with fans of the playground.
Yeah, exactly. I think that women are very eligible to be president. I think that they could be great leaders, but I mean, not if they're corrupt, fear-mongering, propagandists.
Warmongers, yeah. I mean, I don't see how there's any. You want to talk about antiquated arguments? Saying women can't be president, that's about as antiquated of an argument as it gets. I hope that we do have a very strong, good female president one day. I hope so. I hope that does happen. But it's those guys are just wrong. Those two dudes are just wrong.
I agree that the pay gap is real, but I don't agree with the studies that a lot of people use to say that it's solely based because of being a woman, rather than taking into account career preference, time taken off, the actual way you do your job. There's a lot of other variables that go into these studies, and a lot of times I see the feminist movement say, oh, if you're a woman, you're going to make less than a man, and it's just a lot more complex than that.
So I agree that it's a nuanced conversation, so there's like two things that I want to put on it. My dad, right, do you think my dad raised my brother and I and my sister the same?
Obviously not. No, I would hope not.
Well, yeah, but like in the sense that my dad pushed me into different things than he pushed my sister towards. I think women are raised in a way where they're not encouraged to pursue their interests. And now we're starting to get to a generation where I think that might happen, but it's going to take some time. But then the second one is going to be that you get what you negotiate. And this is, I can only give personal experience again. My dad has worked in HR of a company. They offer men more at the start than they do women because men are more likely to negotiate anyways. Women are more likely to take the first thing that is offered.
That's true, yeah.
And that is the thing where they take advantage of the fact that they know women feel uncomfortable in a male-dominated space. So you're going to get a job interview. You're getting interviewed by a man. Everyone you saw when you walked in, for the most part, was a man. And then they offer you a salary. You're going to be a little bit less likely to push back.
But that's my personal experience. But that's not on the company in that example. That's on the women, unfortunately, right? They have to be their own best advocate. They have to stand up for themselves. They have to negotiate better. You look at this issue.
Just pay them more.
When you look at,
but
right,
based
like,
on
when you look at this issue of the gender wage gap, also too, it's the narrative.
I'm muted. Sorry, guys.
Nobody could hear you.
Let me try again.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, chat? Can you hear me now? Hello? Hello? Hello?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know how the okay, cool.
narrative that surrounds it is absolutely factually untrue. You're looking at the average income of, or salaries of men and the average incomes of women, and obviously there's gonna be a difference. Men and women choose to do different things. Like you said, men tend to dominate higher paying industries, higher paying careers. Women tend to go do other things.
I also think that there is a level of preservation that is omitted in these types of conversations. You guys say it's nature, right? I have 2 daughters. If I push my daughters into a male-dominated space, bricklaying or something like that, who are my kids gonna have to work around? Are they gonna have to endure locker room talk? Those are things that are real things that I'm gonna have to entertain in my thought process when I decide where I'm gonna push my child. So that's why I'm saying it's not just nature. There are societal,
I agree.
There are societal things in place that put women at a deficit when it comes to making money.
If a woman feels intimidated, that's
All right, so there's a few things. If you've never seen Brainwash, the documentary, you should absolutely watch it because it addresses some of these points extremely well. It's a Norwegian documentary that talks about this stuff incredibly well. And, you know, Norway is the most egalitarian country in the world. Well, one thing that they found, you know, spoiler alert, one thing they found through these studies is that the more egalitarian a country becomes, the more men and women go toward whatever, like the types of jobs and roles that are considered traditionally masculine for men and feminine for women. The more freedom that's given, the more the male-female divide happens in the workforce. And this is coming from the most egalitarian country in the world. I highly suggest, you can find it on Vimeo, I think. It's just called Brainwash. Check it out. It's called Brainwash, the Gender Equality Paradox. It's incredible.
I wonder if I could watch that on YouTube and react to it.
Well, I think it's been taken off of YouTube for a reason. I think that it got taken off of YouTube. I'm not sure. We could try. It'd be. I mean, I think people would love seeing it. It's maybe worth a shot. Hope you don't. I don't want you to get a strike on your channel or something for it, but it'd be worth a shot.
Yeah, because it's not monetized to watch it. It's just not on YouTube. So.
Yeah, and it's excellent. It's excellent. And the other point that I want to make about this pay gap thing is that everybody, and I think I talked about this on maybe on another stream or something we were together, is that people forget that women have children and childbirth takes about 3 months. It's going to take 3 months for you to have a child, you know, be out of work, take care of the child, and you might not even get back to work after 3 months. So if you take the fact that the world is roughly 50% men and women, and let's even say the rate of birth is low, and let's just say that, I don't know, let's say 47, 46, 45% of women have children, okay? Even at this rate, that takes a substantial amount of time of women being out of the workforce every year. So if 2 people have the same paying job, or 2 people work at McDonald's, for example, for $7.25 an hour, and a man is there, okay? A man's working at McDonald's all year, and a woman gets pregnant and has a kid for the last 3 months of the year, she's only going to make about 75% of what the guy makes. It doesn't mean they made something different in terms of their hourly pay. So I think
then that goes into the conversation of paid leave.
Well, yeah, and we need that. I think that needs to happen. I think there needs to be some degree of paid leave, but I think there should be maternal and paternal leave. I don't think that it should be just maternity leave. I think that it should be both, and I think that it should exist because if we want to have a functioning society, we need to have children, and if we're going to have a society where women have to contribute to the workforce to be able to survive, we need to have safeguards in place so that women can have children. I absolutely agree that I think that that's the case 100%. But in terms of the pay gap, the wage gap, part of that exists because women have children and men don't.
Rumble might be the place for that. I don't know if I can stream on Rumble. I don't know if I have enough followers to stream on Rumble. Guys, go follow me on Rumble. Here's my call to action. I don't know if I can stream on there yet, but
it's on her. Like, that is on her. She needs to fight it. And I don't believe the wage gap exists because you're given the same opportunity to earn the money. The fact that you don't fight for your salary or don't fight for the wage because you feel uncomfortable, it's on you. At the end of the day, it's on you. If you go in and you're applying for a job and you feel intimidated and then they say, oh, we're going to pay you minimum wage, and you agree to it when you know you should be earning like $20 or $30 or whatever, It's on you. You can't cry about it and say, oh, this is because men dominate.
Wait,
Well, so
I'm sorry, can I
go ahead,
interject?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it's on the woman that she feels intimidated, right? That's kind of the
Yes.
paramount. So then, is that the same when it comes to like once you're actually hired and once you are the energy or the environment that you work in as well?
Yeah.
So you
100%.
so the company has no responsibility to make a safe work environment or anything like that?
I never said that.
I'm asking you a question.
he
I
did
said
just
feeling
ask that.
intimidated is not the same as being intimidated or being constantly pushed to be like intimidated. You know what I mean? Like if I were to you and go,
His
yo, I'm gonna hit
faces.
you, or yo,
No,
you know what I mean?
I wouldn't
Or,
say
like,
that.
gold.
The idea that women are tasked with their own social context and creating the environments for themselves that they want to operate within, even though they are continually stripped of power, is infuriating and is disrespectful. It echoed the sentiment of black people keeping themselves down because of the acknowledgement of racism.
I think we'd all agree teachers, nurses, medical professionals, objectively important jobs for the fabric of society.
in the United States.
And
it's
we
just
and
a
we and we
coincidence?
clearly undervalue these industries that are women dominant. Do you think that that's just a coincidence?
No, where I would agree with you is I do think that teachers and nurses should make more money, but that doesn't factor into the point that there is a pay gap, because if a man goes to be a teacher, he's still going to get paid the same amount as a woman.
All right,
So it
let's
doesn't
take a
really
job.
matter.
Let's take a job
Exactly.
where men and women both participate. Like World Cup's going on right now. Look at the U.S. American
Oh my
men's team
gosh.
and the women's
The men's team is also significantly more skilled than the women's team and brings in a bigger
and more
audience.
people watch
Skilled
it.
how?
More people
They
watch
play
it.
this-
Do you think people that play in the
But they don't-
WNBA should be making the same thing as NBA
they
players?
should.
Exactly.
I don't
But they
think
should be getting the
NBA
same
or
shit.
WNBA players
The
should
same
be making
thing.
more
That's not
than
my
teachers.
question. That's not my question.
Talking
In 2022, women are not victims. But yet we live in a society that glorifies being a victim, glorifies being oppressed, glorifies people feeling bad for you, when all honesty, all it does is, again, it provides another disservice to the people that are these so-called victims.
I haven't always
Okay, so the reason that, all right, so like let's take the nurse versus surgeon, okay? A male surgeon and a female surgeon should make the same salary.
Yeah.
He talks about jobs being undervalued, right? A surgeon has a much higher risk of failure and a much higher risk of lawsuit than a nurse does.
Right.
Okay? A construction worker has much higher risk of death than a daycare worker.
Yeah.
Okay? Because of that, there should be a disparity in the amount that people are paid. Because the thing is, if a person could go be a daycare worker, and make the same, they're not going to be a construction worker. If you can make $50 an hour taking care of kids at daycare,
Yeah.
you're not going to go
Right,
risk your
exactly.
life working on.
The money
working
is the
in a-
incentive to do more dangerous work, and men primarily end up doing more dangerous, hard labor than women.
Yes.
And you know, and a man and a woman could both be surgeons, and yes, they should make the same amount of money because they both went through the exact same amount of work, the exact same amount of school to be surgeons. But yeah, to say that, you know, it's unfair, the pay gap, just because men happen to gear towards more dangerous, therefore more you know, financially compensated jobs, is unfair.
Yeah, absolutely.
understood consent in intimate relationships.
Oh, God. Oh, God. This is...
One of the problems
What?
is consent is not always clearly communicated, and I think that's one of the things that it has kind of been weaponized against men, and whether the woman wasn't excited about it, or she didn't like the guy, or she was drunk, or all these things that they can use to remove their consent and their responsibility in that. It would ruin the romantic image of that guy if
man.
he asked to kiss you, or if he asked to have sex with you at every single point.
Yeah.
My experience with it has been a little bit different. As a black kid, I was taught that if you engage in a romance with a white woman, it's a possibility that she might falsely accuse you of something.
Yeah.
So I've always been, I guess you can say hyper consensual. What that has done for me is it has revealed the bullshittery that is all these like backdoor cuts that men act like women take to accuse them of things. It's super possible to never engage romantically with a woman in a way that she doesn't want. It's not even hard.
There's enthusiastic consent. You shouldn't like want to feel like you're talking somebody into something or like they are okay with it.
Right.
You have sexual encounters with people that want to have the sexual encounters, that are excited about it, and like that's something that like I do think gets lost. Like
But to your-
consent.
I'm
One
sorry,
more
go
thing.
ahead.
One
Yeah,
more thing, really
absolutely.
quick. I know young men that like
definitely didn't want to have sex as much as they were, and they were men, but they feel like they had to, they don't, and it's like these things, like it's informing young people, like even though you don't want them to have sex at a young age, you have to inform them of it because they'll do it wrong if you don't.
It's baked into our culture from the music that we listen to. It's in porn. It's a dominating culture. When you go into a relationship, these are the things that you see, so you try to enact on that. Consent doesn't make you any less of a man. Consent is really creating the safety for the other person to mutually just be down for it.
Yeah, duh.
Honestly, I didn't really hear anything that I disagreed with over here. It's just the only thing in this conversation that I worry about is lack of accountability, because a lot of times, women or man, doesn't matter what your sex is, if you're engaging in sexual activity, you can pretty much signal that it's consensual and it can get confusing, but then if a woman or if a man doesn't verbalize it and then they go back, they confuse consent with regret. And I've seen that a lot in court cases or just throughout our culture.
But that's where the coercion thing comes, right? And like the context around, like the context surrounding, like, if they were to say no, would they have been safe? Would there have been repercussions?
But
are you putting them in a position where
or is that on the woman? Because if they agree,
it depends
to
on
do
the situation.
Unless they were raped.
Like the Harvey Weinstein thing. Like, if any of those women say no, their careers are ruined.
Right.
They're in danger because they're.
That's very fair. That's very fair. That's a fair point for him. I gotta give that to him. That's a very fair point. Like, if a person is in a position of power. And you have like a lot of times, like what was Courtney Love? What did she say? She told in the interview, what's your advice for young women coming up in entertainment? Don't go to Harvey Weinstein's Four Seasons Resort, right? That says everything you need to know right there. That like in the power structures and in these types of positions where you have to answer to some sort of male authority who will use your consent or lack thereof against you. Yeah, of course. That is a completely separate paradigm where the girl is being manipulated. Like that's absolutely a thing. I think that, and I know that like they talk about that like whatever enthusiastic consent or whatever. I don't even think it goes that far. I think that you have to think like.
Hold on. Oh no, the internet. No.
Huh?
The internet.
It's up. It's up because we're still talking.
I think it cut out.
It didn't because we're still talking. It's still up. The internet's up.
Okay, my OBS said that it disconnected on me.
Okay, well it could be OBS's server. Okay, they said we had 2 lag spikes. It's back. Okay. Yeah, I think that, and I'll keep this quick, but I think that as a guy, you got to ask, okay. If this happens, what's the likelihood that it could come back tomorrow and this decision to do this ruins my life? If the answer to that is even a 1%, it could ruin my life. You should not do it. So if you're at a club and a girl's drunk and she throws herself all over you and she acts like that's the thing to do, don't do it because you never know how that's going to end up. If you have a girl you've been talking to for a month and you two have gotten really close and you're in a situation where she's okay with it, that's totally fine. But I think that as long as you as a man avoid situations where you're going to have to deal with the seeds of doubt that the situation plants in your mind, you'll be fine. Guys get in trouble when they put themselves, guys that don't have power, get themselves into trouble when they put themselves into situations where it's not clear as to what's going on. And I think it's pretty simple in that sense.
As a woman, I take complete responsibility for the encounters that I've had when I was younger, when I was in my early 20s and my late teens that I might regret now. There was a bit of coercion probably, but not to the point where I was in danger. So I understand that, those were fleeting and it was half of my responsibility to say no.
Sure, but I think that what he's saying, the guy in orange, I actually agree with him here, is saying is that if you would put yourself in a Weinstein type situation,
right,
your ability to say no would have been much more difficult, and you would have been in a lot more danger, not just physically, but also societally, career-wise. It would have put you in a lot of danger. So for women, I think that means that you have to be extremely careful. And women don't want to hear this because this requires some accountability and some discernment. you have to be extremely careful about the people you associate with regards to how they show their act and show their attraction toward you. You have to be very careful.
And as a young woman, like I said, it's very hard to decipher if someone actually cares about you in a long-term way, or if they're just trying to get sex out of you. It's very hard to decipher that. Discernment is very hard to learn. Yeah. So, but just because you don't have discernment doesn't necessarily mean that, like, you know, it wasn't partly your decision. But I do think that there are way too many situations where women are forcibly coerced into very dangerous sexual situations, and it needs to end.
Yep. So I actually agree with both sides on this.
That is totally understandable. It's the context. I don't think that false accusations, especially for sexual assault, are anywhere near as common as people want to make them out to be. And I think the much bigger problem in day-to-day life is the consent issue, not the false accusation.
That's undermining it, though, because you guys haven't gone through it. Saying that that is okay is not.
I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying that in terms of what's a bigger issue that we need to worry about.
I think there are some nuanced issues that you have to pick a side, and I'm picking women not getting raped over men not getting falsely accused.
But that isn't.
I don't think that you
those aren't mutually exclusive, and it's a shame that we live in a world that's so black and white that you can't balance the interest of those who are victims, true victims, and also those who are falsely accused. One false allegation of rape, sexual assault, discredits a lot of other real ones in people's eyes. It ruins the lives of people who are true victims of getting their cases heard in a fair and positive light.
I think what we're all circling around is that what we need in our society is comprehensive sexual education.
Yeah.
And I think the topic of consent needs to be just as important as the topic of protection.
You probably would if men got raped more.
Feminists?
I agree with teaching about consent too, more than the other things they're trying to teach kids in sex education these days.
Me too. I think that consent from the angle of self-protection and safety is the most important type of sexual education you can give to children and to minors, I think.
And discernment.
Yeah, discernment. Yep.
Are in it to get laid.
I'm excited for this one because I don't like women sexually, so this is going to be a very interesting conversation. I think that if you are a straight male, the way you view women subconsciously is always going to have something to do with sex.
Right.
On just a fundamental level, just in nature. Now, that might not be the whole premise, but I do think that it has something to do with it.
Yeah, I think, like, again, the problem with these statements is, like, they're general. I think there are men out there that are predatory and are posing as feminists to get into the pants of women.
And even on a more, like, micro level, like, so I was literally just watching a recent Jubilee video, and it was one about a man, he was a self-proclaimed pickup artist. And this is almost a direct quote of what he says. He goes, "Oh, hell yeah, I fuck with feminism."
You know, I like to think I'm a feminist. I fuck with feminism.
And I think it's kind of emblematic of, like, there are men that don't understand the full gravity of how people who are real feminists feel about the situation. And they kind of see it as like this, like, oh, this cool, hot social issue. And if I talk about it, it puts me in the group of the good people. And I don't think it's always heinous, while there are people that are doing that. Some of it's just, like, such blatant ignorance that they lack the understanding.
Yeah, I think even the posing of the question is indicative of the truth of the matter, that I think a lot of the time it is that, because if you align yourself with a lot of the more traditionally toxic masculine traits and you're not viewed as on team woman, then you're not going to be in line with a lot of Western women in today's society.
I have a few like friends that go to these parties and they're like, oh yeah, fuck Andrew Tate. They all watch him, but they'll be like, oh, fuck Andrew Tate, just so they can get laid, because they know that's how, you know, a woman will feel like, oh wow, they're listening to me, or oh wow, they agree with me, and feel a little more connected.
And
I think for me, as someone,
he has an interesting point about the Sam Bankman-Fried stuff. What came out in some of these things with Sam Bankman-Fried is that in some, I guess, I don't know if it was some documents that were released or some interview that was something as a result of all of it, is he overtly said that he was aligning, like, with a lot of the social stuff, like a lot of the social things. He was saying all the talking points because it gained in popularity. and it didn't really have anything to do with what he actually believed, which he proved by the way that he scammed so many people. But he used so many of these like political talking points, these like leftist progressive ideas to try to make people think that he's a better person than he actually was. So I do think that there's definitely some merit to the idea that some guys are just out here acting like this so that they can prey on women, for sure.
Yep, definitely. I agree. I know for a fact that people will lie to maintain a narrative that they don't agree with so they can benefit for it. I mean, it sounds like even obvious, so obvious it seems silly to mention at this point. This is our culture. Our whole culture is about lying to make a perception for the masses to agree with you. It's pretend to agree with the masses so the masses will validate you. That's our entire culture.
Yep.
This is just a microcosm of that culture.
Someone who believes genuinely in the fact that men and women are equal, but I don't go around parading myself as a feminist because the only thing that I could think that justifies being a third-wave feminist, being a feminist today, is you must just want to get laid because there's no reason to believe in all of these crazy things that go after your identity as a man, that seek to strip you of your masculinity, that perpetuate these terrible ideas that men are bad and evil and all of these things, that you can't be a provider, you can't be a protector, all of these things. I think that has to be the reason. Like,
So,
you have
some
to
of
want
us
to get
don't
laid.
identify with. Me personally, I don't identify with masculinity. I might show masculinity, but like I don't think feminism is taking anything away from me.
But I think that's a societal problem, though. The fact that masculinity itself has become a dirty word is a problem.
I didn't say it's a dirty word. I'm saying it doesn't matter.
Why do you choose not to identify with it anymore, even as a man?
Because when you say it, nothing in my heart feels anything. It's just a word. It's just a. I don't think anything I do is because I'm a man. I think that it's because of who I am.
Beard, you know, how about your genitalia?
Yeah.
Well, he said anything that he does.
Let's hear it.
I think, to your point, asking like, why would any man be a feminist? So I just think that we don't all view feminism the way you do. Similar to the way the Black Lives Matter movement has been moved and changed and developed in terms of the way that people identify it. The things that you speak about when you talk about third wave feminism is not what I mean when I say that I am a male feminist. And so, yeah, no, if you can't understand that me wanting to make the world a more equal and level playing field for my two daughters, for my wife, for my mother and my mother-in-law, and standing in front of people who want to take liberties away from them, that's the reason why I am a male feminist. It's a perpetuation of oppression that I'm trying to dismantle.
And for me, I think we're taking this from a very heteronormative perspective, right? All my friends aren't straight women. So I'm not gonna look at my non-binary or LGBTQ friends and be like, oh, just because I can't have sex with you, I'm not gonna fight for your rights. There is no personal gain for just saying that we should be there.
Two things can be true. I agree with you. And I think a lot of us agree on what we're talking about. It's just these labels are in the way of getting us to that.
It's also a blanket statement.
One thing to build on top of too is, to an extent, leading men to want to take advantage of women is the very pressure put on by other men.
Yeah.
That if you're not sleeping around, if you're not getting laid, you aren't. And that doesn't come from women, at least from my experience.
That's
and
patriarchal
so, like,
culture.
If men were a little bit like so, I'll say this now. I didn't lose my virginity until I was 22. Now I'm fine with that. If you asked me at 21 how I felt about that, I would change the subject as quickly as I possibly could because I was ashamed.
They make movies about it.
Right.
Yeah, dude. Like, I mean, I was ashamed of it, but you know, that's part of the patriarchy.
This is gonna be the last prompt.
No.
I want to
You
hear
almost
everyone
made it.
speak. I want everyone to get their voice in. Be mindful of folks that are trying to talk. Step forward if you agree with the prompt. I like living in a patriarchal society.
What? That's a stupid prompt.
That's a trap.
That's a catch-22.
That's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap. Don't do it. It's a trap.
I would say patriarchal society. Again, I've mentioned the scriptural basis for this, but I think patriarchal society is the way that society functions best. Yeah, patriarchy is just a man-led society. So I think we've kind of flipped the term on its head to mean something that it doesn't mean, to say that a patriarchy is a society that oppresses women. That's not what a patriarchy is. So I think if you have a patriarchy operating properly, you have men that are responsible and taking care of their families, taking care of the women of society, and in turn the women have equal opportunities to pursue whatever career they want, to be a mom, to be a wife, and to do the things that they want to do as well.
So, I'll go first. This is a little bit of a personal, emotional thing. At the beginning of September, I lost my brother to cancer. And I took about 2 or 3 weeks off work. And then I really started feeling, the financial impact of it. And I have my girlfriend, people in my life telling me that they want to help me out financially. But I have this thing internally within me that feels like a leech. In some way, shape, or form, that is because of this thing this expectation that we put on men to be providers. It's really fucking hard. And I can't explain why. I would have liked to have a little bit more time than 3 weeks before I had to start worrying about fucking money again after my brother passed away. And I do feel like that kind of is a direct result of the patriarchy. And I know that it is myself, it's my personal feelings, but I think it stems from the society that I grew up in that I'm even feeling these things to begin with.
I'm sorry for yeah, to start, I want to say I'm really sorry for your loss, because I can't even imagine what it's like to lose a loved one. So I want to thank you for sharing your story. It's really important for people to hear. But I don't think that it's accurate to blame a horrific situation on one aspect of society or the patriarchy or this without any solid basis.
So I think that's a fair response. And to clarify my statement just a little bit, that's more of a communal problem. I wish there was a little bit more of a stronger community sense within our country.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like...
All right. Voluntarism, but the thing is, these people that make these arguments would never argue, they would never look at voluntarism. The idea in a voluntaristic society is that people would be there that want to be there to help you in situations like that. Like, you can't enforce the world to take on your problems for you. You can't litigate and regulate the world to take on your problems. You have to hope for the good of people to help you.
I think that there is a pressure on men to not ask for help.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that men have a lot harder of a time asking for help financially or emotionally from other people than women do. However, women are kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? We are programmed to want to ask for help, but know that we have to give something in return. There is no like selfless help that women get. At least obviously I say this all the time. I don't speak for all women, but like there's got to be something. Nothing is free, right? And I think women know that. So women are okay with asking for help, but it's at the expense of at lots of things. By sharing something personal about themselves, by being a little more friendly with someone, right? And it can turn into manipulation, obviously, women asking for help. But I think just in general, women are a lot more comfortable with the idea of asking for help because it's a lot more readily available to them. And men kind of get this pressure of like, you can do it yourself, be a man, you can work it out on your own, you can get your own money. Why are you asking for handouts? And with women, it's like, oh, we expect women to need handouts, right?
Well, all the fairy tales have the prince going after the Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah.
We're taught as children that women will always be the ones to save, so they will always need help. So men will always be beholden to them because you have to go save your damsel in distress. Men have to be the Prince Charming, right? If we're not Prince Charming, then even if we go wake up the Sleeping Beauty, she's not going to want us in the first place. Right?
And I've had male friends come to me and be like, listen, I can't afford dinner tonight. I can't afford to put gas in my car. And so I've like sent them like $20 on PayPal or something, like, here, buy yourself a pizza tonight on me. Like I've helped my guy friends out before, but I've also been manipulated by women before. My ex-girlfriend, she told me that she needed money for gas and I gave her $15 or whatever, and she went and bought cigarettes with it. Because, women just expect to get help
and that's,
from other women too.
I agree that is an element of patriarchal society. And see, that's why I get so upset when all these people try to argue that OnlyFans isn't a byproduct of the patriarchy, because it is. Like the whole thing is women expecting handouts from men for the things that they quote unquote offer, and that so men are the ones that are expected to pay out for when women ask for it, and men aren't really able to do the other way around. I guess gay men could use something like OnlyFans for other men, but in the like
That's still the patriarchy.
I do think that they're onto something, that there is an element of patriarchy in this. But again, this isn't a woman's problem. This is men's issues. This is the way that men are conditioned not to get help. That's a men's problem. That's not a woman's problem. So why are we framing this as feminism when it's not?
It's for the clicks, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, I'm talking about why are the feminists framing this? I've had this argument with somebody else before who I explained these things to, and he literally said, well, if we fix women's issues, that'll solve the men's issues more. But that's the thing, like, this is still there. Fixing women's issues is not going to magically solve the fact that men are taught from childhood that you can't ask for help, that you got to handle everything on your own, that you got to, you're ashamed of yourself if you can't provide. That's fixing women's problems won't solve that.
Bonnie says that she's a woman, and one of the hardest things for her was stepping aside to be a mother instead of earning money, even though her husband was able to take that burden. So I think that's just you being a good partner. You want to be able to help provide for your home too, but you are providing by being a mother, and it's not fair for you to put that burden on yourself because things are so tough financially in our world. Because remember, like a couple generations ago, men made enough money to support the wife and the kids. And so maybe you feel some of that pressure because nowadays things are so expensive, and the workforce expects both parents to be in the workforce. You know what I mean?
Sure.
A patriarchal society is not one of support. It's one of merit. It's one of bootstraps. It's one of strength.
Competition.
Yeah, it's competition.
You said that a merit-based society is somehow correlated with the patriarchy, and I don't see the correlation there, because if you look anywhere in nature, everything is merit-based. Lions in the safari, it's about strength. It's about, competition. That's just how our world works. And my biggest flaw with feminism today, or any social movement really, is that some things are just inherent to nature. So to try to solve equal outcome and solve all of these problems, it's just naive, and it takes away from actually solving the issues that are in front of us, because it's a delusion.
There will always be winners and losers.
Yeah. I just wanted to go back and, we've been asking, what does patriarchy mean, right? I don't think it just means male-led. What I'm trying to dismantle is the institutions in our society reinforcing that males are superior. A lot of societal institutions and staples of our society are reinforcing that narrative that men alone have to take on that mantle of being the one to provide, being the one to lead the charge on fixing a problem, right? Where, like what Tucker was saying, we all experience emotions and, react independently, and we look for community.
Yeah, so I think a direct combat towards the patriarchy is emotional intelligence that we haven't actually talked much about today. We keep going back to business, money, and all these different things because those are things associated with manhood. But if we really want to shift the dynamic, it's about how do we own the emotional parts of ourselves as men, and that is not a conversation that is had in society enough, nor is it supported. In a patriarchal society, it impacts men in a way where we feel like we can't let the armor down.
That's what the difference between you're saying third wave feminism versus first and second wave. I feel like now it's about superiority. When you're saying you're mansplaining, or when you're putting that men do this or men take advantage and men do that, it makes it as we're your enemy, when in reality it should be more about working as a team, right?
I have a clarifying question. Yeah. So you were describing that it's shifting to matriarchy, right?
Yeah, matriarchy. Just more like being against, when you're demonizing men for their actions in general.
Yeah, so when we're moving towards a socially matriarchal society, it's mansplaining and it's men being canceled. But when patriarchy is in place, we're dealing with issues of wealth, we're dealing with issues of healthcare, whether you consider it healthcare or not. We're dealing with issues of safety, we're dealing with issues of liberty, we're dealing with issues of choice. It seems that matriarchy is less, oppressively heavy, because all I have to deal with is you not liking what I have to say. Whereas in a patriarchy, I can't make as much money. That's worse.
Well, it's not just about disagreeing about whether or not
no,
it exists. And the fact of the matter is, even in a patriarchal society which doesn't exist, men and women can still go and make the same amount of money. If women majored in higher paying fields of study, they would make more money. When we talk about men's mental health, I separate it from patriarchy because I think that to be expressive about what you're feeling and what you're going through, you have to be strong. And being strong, I associate that with being a man, being masculine. Maybe society would like to beat you up for that. Maybe that's why men are likelier to commit suicide. But that is still an example of strength.
I think that as we get further and further along the generations, we need to start preaching to young men the type of strength that you were talking about. Self-awareness, discipline, and honesty, emotional honesty. Not being tough and not like, being able to go through a lot, but being aware when you're going through something, when you're struggling, being able to articulate that, right? And doing it to the right people at the right time. I think that is what strength is. And I think that that's a positive message that we could communicate to the next generation about masculinity.
We ended on consensus.
Yes, that is a wrap on.
Nice. All right.
Yep. You want to give your last thoughts? Or you want me to give my last thoughts?
I'm just going through chat here for a second.
Okay.
Problem is, if you're too nice, you're taken advantage of when women go on dates to get a free meal. That's true. That's true. Women definitely do see men as a free meal. I've seen
definitely. Girls will just pick up a Tinder date so they get a free dinner, and that's it. With no intent of having a serious date, they'll take a dude that they don't even like just so they get a free dinner out of it.
Yep, that definitely does happen. Men tend to not ask for help because access to that help is limited and not readily available. Also, men don't like to lose any independence they have.
That's talked about in the red pill too. That men don't like. There's only one in the whole United States, or at least when the red pill was made. There's only one domestic abuse shelter for men in the whole U.S. One.
Yeah,
one.
That's crazy. That's wrong. We definitely need more. Now that I've looked up the definition of feminism, it's a joke to me. Females have much more power socially, politically, on average, from my perspective. I mean, there are people in positions of power just because they are women. That's true. But there are plenty of really messed up, psychotic men in power that have either been there for generations or got there by very bad, conniving ways of being. So I think in general, I enjoyed this debate, I think, more than the last one. I feel like they at least tried to listen to each other when the last debate was like, they were not listening to each other at all.
Yeah, I think that I found that I agreed with everybody at least once, except for, like, I'm a Christian, therefore male.
Therefore patriarchy.
Yeah, I didn't really agree with him on very much of anything. I think the last point he made that, like, women should be able to choose if they want to live in a patriarchal system, I think that that's fair. I think that's a fair argument, but I found things that I agreed with pretty much all of them. I don't think that feminism is the solution to men's issues. I think that saying that men's issues are solved by women solving women's problems first is just an excuse to put men's problems on the back burner. I think that trying to solve male problems by solving female problems is just a fallacious argument. I don't think that doesn't make any sense. You don't do that. Like, you don't. I don't know. I can't think of an apt comparison off the top of my head, but you don't. It's just you don't solve that problem by solving women's problems. The things like this, the court systems, they don't get solved by solving women's issues. Solving women's issues is what got the court system so biased. So, like, that's not how it works. You can't just say we need more feminism to make things better for men. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm happy that you have a service animal, by the way, out loud. That's nice. In America, if you want to move up in class, there are only 3 things to do: get married before kids, make good decisions, and work hard. I mean, some people are definitely dealt a bad hand, but I do believe that, if you can work yourself out of hard situations. I do think so. 1 in 5 women ages 40 to 59, 1 in 4 women ages 16 over used antidepressants in the last 30 days in 2018.
I think that another thing that people need to consider is that you can't force people to like you. You can't litigate your way into being respected.
Yeah, I learned that. I was canceled.
You cannot bully your way into having a place in society.
And I just want to say, I want to reiterate my point that just because I'm a woman, that does not mean that people are more willing to listen to me or come to bat for me. I still was canceled when I was calling out corruption against children. So it didn't matter that I was a woman. It didn't matter then. It just mattered that I was against the narrative. And I think that's a huge point to make here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that feminism has become part of that narrative. And even if you have points that you agree with, you can't say anything that doesn't go outside that's lockstep in line. You're a feminist or else kind of thing, or you're just a bigot or whatever. You know, you're just ostracized. You're not a part of it. Yep. You know, I think that these guys, like you said, were listening to each other. I think that it seemed like they came into the conversation in good faith. But I do think that there were. I didn't say all my thoughts. There were way too many, and I know we're on a time crunch. So there were a lot of things through this that were pretty fallacious by everybody, except the only guy who really I didn't think used too many fallacious arguments was CJ. He was the only one, and I guess the gay dude. He was his argument was pretty cogent. I didn't agree with everything he said, but he was pretty consistent.
I also noticed that they don't have a trans man here. If they do, then they didn't mention that they were trans. Oh. And they did have trans women in the feminist arguments. Like I said, I think I do want to do a reaction to the women's argument, but not in this stream because we're at our 2-hour mark. But
sure. Well, this was fun.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for the super chats as well. It is awesome that YouTube approved me for their membership program. That is super, super wonderful. Thanks again, Jeremy. I owe you. Thank you guys for being here. It was a good time. What should we do next? I will be active. Please follow me on Twitter. People are very upset with me on Twitter right now because I talked about Hogwarts, the new Hogwarts game. Holy shit, thank you for the $17.99. Thanks for the huge super chat.
Wow.
Here's some foreign money. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That is so kind. Love listening to good open conversations. Of course, I love being here. I love doing conversations with my brother. He is awesome too. He's not going anywhere. If you guys haven't already, make sure you watch my most recent video on the Dark Triad that comes out in video games. I know maybe not at...
Oh my god.
Holy shit, thanks for stream. Follow on Rumble.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Outlaw. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It's enormous. Thank you. You're huge. Yes. If I can stream on Rumble, I will. I think streaming Brainwash on Rumble would be a really cool idea. But like I said, I don't think I have enough followers on Rumble to be able to stream yet. So, but some of my videos are over there. But yeah, and follow me on Twitter because people are unfollowing me on Twitter because people are talking about J.K. Rowling. So go look at the chaos that's going on my Twitter right now. You guys will not be disappointed. Zach has been popping off.
I stuck my nose into the mess, and it's been. I've seen so many terrible arguments. That's good for a laugh if you want to laugh. Go check out Ellie's Twitter.
Yeah. So thank you again so much for the super chats. Thank you for all of the support. Thank you. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe and all that stuff. Oh my god. Good blood out to me. Thank you, Bradley. What the heck, you guys? What?
Oh, thank you so much, you guys.
Those are awesome. Wow, first stream with super chats.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it really just shows that you guys like my content, so I want to keep making it. I really think for the next one I want to do the other. I know we already watched a trans woman feminist panel, but this one is like conservative traditional women versus trans women, and so I don't know, it might be a little bit different, but all right.
Can I say one more thing real quick for you?
Yeah, of course, Zach. Go ahead.
I just want to tell everybody watching this from the perspective of a big brother, family type thing. you guys have motivated Ellie so much. After everything that happened as a result of her being canceled in that terrible community, all the horrible things that have happened to her on the internet over the past year and a half, the fact that Jeremy's community has lifted her up so much and stood up for her and had her back from day one. She's only been around for 2 weeks. Yeah. It has changed her entire perspective. Like, I see a different Ellie every day when it comes to her motivations and her goals and her wanting to achieve again. So you guys have opened up her want to be a content creator again. So thank you to all of you for that. It's incredible.
Yeah, I am so motivated. Just before this stream, I was working on recording a video called Reasons Why I'm Not an E-Girl. So yeah, that one will sure upset some people, but you know, I don't want to propagate a culture that manipulates people for profit, man. That ain't me. I don't want to do that. And if people want to support me, like you wonderful people, just because you like what I have to say, I don't have to sexualize myself. I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. That's the community that I want anyway. I don't want a community that just looks at me like some girl, you know? I want someone who listens to my mind and wants to support me in that way. So thank you so much. And I do have a subscribe star if you want to see more personal vlogs. I have a couple of vlogs on here of me and Zach, one of us going to Disney World and one of us going to Halloween Horror Nights. Those two are public on my YouTube channel, but all my private vlogs, like us going to a concentration camp, us going to another amusement park for Halloween this year, is on my subscribe star. So, and us moving into our new apartment. Yeah. I do. I have a new community now. Awesome. Whale off. The world is better when hot women smile and laugh often. Well, heck yeah. I pay for Pearl phone calls and have never used it. I would let her have it if she wanted it. Oh, Pearly things? Nice.
For you to talk to Pearl? Huh.
Oh, wow. Sweet. That would be awesome. I would love to do that. I mean, yeah, sure. Get me on a phone call with Pearl and I'll do my best. People have been telling me to get in touch with Tim Poolcast or whatever. There's no way he's going to talk to me. My goal is, you know, maybe one day have a call with Sydney and Jeremy. That'd be really cool. Yeah, that would be awesome. Awesome. All right, well, I will call it here. Gotta let the algorithm nibble on this video a little bit. I will be back again soon. So soon.
Thanks again, everybody. It was awesome.
Thanks, guys. Be well. Take care of yourselves.